All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into the rigorous operational protocols and the advanced training curriculum of the court recorder and record keeper within the assembly structure. Now, since we already know you're familiar with the mechanics of grand and trial juries, assembly justices, and due process, this explainer is going to focus on exactly how the permanent history of those proceedings is documented, secured, and preserved over time. We'll be taking a professional, documentary-style look directly at the source training manuals to really understand the immense responsibility carried by those who guard the public record. Okay, let's dive into this. We've got 6 core modules on the agenda today. First, the role of the recorder, then recording and transcripts, followed by managing evidence, preserving records, best practices, and finally, maintaining the permanent history. Starting things off with Module 1, the role of the recorder. This position is literally the bedrock of the assembly. So looking at the training material, creating a public record isn't just administrative paperwork. It is absolutely crucial for establishing political status. The documents managed by the recording secretaries provide the official evidence that affirms identity, as well as the capacity in which people are choosing to act. The source texts heavily emphasize that a properly established public record actually has the power to overcome and rebut private registrations. And that makes the recorder the ultimate guardian of these facts, right? They ensure the records reflect actual people and actual land. On a day-to-day basis, well, the recording secretary's role is incredibly detail-oriented. You're not just pushing paper, you are the front line. The daily tasks include scheduling appointments for document notarization, witnessing and publishing those documents, and handling the financial side of things, like collecting and transferring recording fees. You're also tasked with safely mailing original documents back to their owners and strictly safeguarding the official seals you've been entrusted with. Plus, the manual notes that a massive part of this job is simply talking to new nationals, answering their questions, and walking them through the paperwork process. Moving right along to Module 2, Recordings and Transcripts. Let's look at the live proceeding protocols. Let's see how this builds in a live setting. The procedural workflow of the court actually starts when the justice formally verifies that the recorder, clerk, bondsman, and notary are all present in the room. Only then does the living court begin, and the recording, along with the transcripts, is officially kicked off. But here's a really important rule. The training explicitly stresses a mandatory pause. When the jury gathers in the jury room to deliberate, the court recorder must pause the recording. The bondsman makes sure the jury has access to the evidence they need, but those private deliberations are strictly off the record. No exceptions. Now here's a fascinating distinction made in the training manual regarding terminology and jurisdiction. It states that land and soil jurisdiction courts keep records, whereas sea jurisdiction courts keep files. It's a subtle but massive difference. A well-trained court clerk and recorder must know how to observe the facts and the capacity of the parties involved. They need to know they are compiling true records of actual factual people and events occurring within the state or county boundaries, meticulously tracking evidence, rather than just managing intangible corporate files. Which brings us to Module 3, Managing Evidence and Securing the Chain of Custody. The manual maps out an exact step-by-step custody flow to make sure nothing is ever compromised once a court process concludes. First up, the bondsman seals the case document and hands all the evidence over to the clerk. Then the clerk processes all that paperwork, makes the necessary copies, and prepares any orders signed by the justice for registered mailing. Finally, that fully processed package is handed over to the record keeper, where it rests in permanent, secure custody. Every single handoff is structured to preserve total accountability. So the crucial point here is redundancy and organization. Both physical paper copies and digital backups have to be meticulously maintained. The record keeper has to have a computer capable of backing up digital audio from meetings right alongside perfectly neat paper files of all meeting minutes and status correction documents. Interestingly, the source material explicitly notes one major exception here. Record keepers do not hold on to original birth certificates. Instead, they archive baby deeds and status corrections. All right, Module 4, Preserving Public Records. Let's look at the protocols for physical storage and distribution. To really lock things down against loss or tampering, the documents mandate a triplicate filing system. Ideally, all records are created in original triplicate right at the time of their creation. It works like this. One copy goes directly to the jural assembly member, the second copy is kept securely by the soil jurisdiction county-level organization, and the third remains permanently with the state jural assembly recorder. By splitting the original records through ways, the assembly secures the information in multiple locations simultaneously. It's like a giant safety net. And physical storage? That is taken very seriously. The training suggests that when an assembly is just starting out at the local county level, a single fireproof file cabinet tucked away in a lockable, secured home might actually do the trick initially. But as the assembly grows and that volume of historical documents inevitably increases, record keepers have to plan ahead. They must evolve their storage solutions, eventually moving toward large, fireproof vaults or highly secure, dedicated storage facilities. Now, you might be wondering, how does a document officially become a public record in the first place? Well, the sources clarify there's no special magic to it. A valid public record can be established through the Assembly Land Recording Office, the International Land Recording Publishing Service, or even just by sustained publication in a public newspaper that has reasonable distribution. The recorder's main duty there is to maintain physical copies of those publications, literally keeping the actual newspaper clippings as absolute proof of the record. Okay, let's hit Module 5. Mistakes and best practices, specifically looking at how to identify, document jurisdictions. The training manual presents a very specific set of rules regarding capitalization to determine jurisdiction without bias. According to the text, anything printed in upper and lowercase signifies British Territorial Admiralty Law, or the UCMJ, which it refers to as a straw man. On the flip side, anything printed in all caps signifies Roman Municipal Maritime Law, or the UCC, referring to a tin man. Training the staff to identify these exact nuances is a massive part of their competency evaluation. Now, what's really interesting about this is the practical technique taught to trainees to apply these rules and avoid willfully misaddressing Americans. The manual suggests a visual exercise using two different colored highlighters. A yellow marker is used to highlight names and terms written in upper and lowercase, while an orange marker is used for names written in all caps. This simple but effective exercise trains the recorder's eye to immediately spot the presumed jurisdiction of a document the second they look at it. Beyond just the technical know-how, the manual lays out the ideal professional traits for this job. A good record keeper and public notary has to be incredibly patient, totally trustworthy, and highly organized. They need a deep, extensive knowledge of due process to handle these complex, multi-step procedures. Essentially, they have to be master multitaskers, capable of tracking exactly where a document is in the workflow while simultaneously, answering a barrage of questions from brand new assembly members. And finally, Module 6, the permanent history. And this brilliantly illustrates the true weight of the role. The texts put it plainly. They are making history here. The record keeper safeguards records not just for today's court use, but for the benefit of future historians. Because this role requires direct access to people's sensitive, personal information, absolutely every document must be flawlessly saved. The person holding this office literally has to be beyond reproach. Ultimately, the entire architecture of this court system relies on the integrity of its records. Without that meticulous documentation, the whole thing falls apart. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to reflect on this core principle, straight from the source. Accurate and complete records preserve accountability, support due process, and provide a permanent history of court proceedings. Think about the vast amount of paperwork generated every single day. Who is keeping the true record of your history, and how secure is it? Thanks so much for joining me today.